25-year-old Jayland Walker was gunned down after a police chase, and it has sparked major protests and major controversy. Joining me to talk about it, Billy Hallowell, Tré Goins-Phillips from CBN's FaithWire.com. Guys, this initially the headlines maybe didn't quite represent exactly what happened here, and this looks to me, guys, like it could be a case of the media jumping to conclusions before all the facts are in.
Yeah, I think in all of these cases, and this is the problem with social media, right? There's a benefit, and the benefit is that we never would have seen these events happen before there was video, before there was a way to share that video, before there were cameras on cops. So we have the benefit of technology, but I think the detriment of technology is that an event happens, very limited and filtered information is put out there. You have to go with whatever the media framing is, and they're relying on whatever witness testimony they can get and whatever video clips are there. And then a narrative immediately forms and spreads, on social media. And so on either end of all of these cases, you have that really complex dynamic of not having the full information, but yet being empowered through social to sort of champion something that you really can't have a fully informed opinion on. And that's a real struggle from the media right down to regular citizens.
Yeah, and it seems like it can be inhibiting, Tré, to actual productive conversations that both sides can have on issues when it comes to how police handle these engagements. Because in this particular instance, they said that the suspect who fled from police and then allegedly shot, it looks like now that that's the case, waiting for that to be fully confirmed, but that he did shoot back at police who were in pursuit. So when he eventually jumps out of the car and disobeys the orders and then begins to run, he's wearing a ski mask and then turns around. And at that point, multiple officers fire. And this is another point of contention, at least 60 rounds into him, and he's obviously killed on the spot there. But he did have a gun in the car. It did look like he shot. So you put that all into that context, and then the headline comes out that police shot an unarmed man. Well, he apparently had left the gun in the car when he fled. This is all at night. This is all happening quick after they've been shot at. So a bit of a disingenuous headline there. And I think that's the sort of thing that's counterproductive, Tré, to having a conversation on these issues.
Well, I think, tragedies like these, whether the shoot can ultimately be justified or not, the loss of a human life is always something to mourn and to grieve. And I think all of these situations kind of culminate in creating the perfect storm each time, particularly like you were saying, Billy, with social media, because all of this preys on our best instincts and our worst instincts. Our best instinct being that we're information gatherers by nature. Human beings want more information. They want to gather data, but then social media encourages another instinct, which is to jump to conclusions. And then I think laying over all of that is our own human bias. We can't escape what we're predisposed to. We can work hard at kind of keeping it at bay, but we can't eliminate it altogether. And the media is run by human beings, and the people who are consuming the media are, again, human beings. So I think you put all of that together, and it creates this perfect storm of jumping to conclusions, not giving fair time to maybe the first responders, and then also on the other side, maybe not giving fair deference to the potential victim or even the suspect. So, I think all of this kind of culminates, like I said, into this storm that then it's really, really difficult to untangle.
Yeah, and it seems that we should be able to land in a place where we can, on both sides, agree to, hey, let's look at these cases here. Because particularly the media knows what's going to happen. They know what the narratives are now and what's going to rile people up and what's going to be just a hot button issue for them. And like you said, it happens on both the right and the left. We saw in the case of Ahmaud Arbery, for example, there was a lot of leaping to defend the two suspects who went and chased after this alleged supposed criminal. And when you watch the video, it's very clear that they overstepped their authority, and they ended up paying the price for that in court. And so, but these narratives that we want to jump to, as tempting as it may be, particularly as Christians, we need to be really clinging to the truth and to let the facts and the chips fall where they may. And it seems like, because like you said, Billy, social media and this desire, especially for the media in general, they need to satisfy the click monster. They need to get those clicks. And so they're going to feed that. That's going to be their natural tendency. And I think we really have to make a concerted effort to fight against that.
Yeah, no, the example you just gave is a great one. The assumption that somebody is guilty when they've, done nothing wrong and it's a tragedy, and, siding with the police, siding with the victim without any information, without any details. The Bible talks a lot about taming the tongue, watching the tongue, and that applies in these circumstances, having wisdom, taking wisdom and bringing it in. You can't have solid wisdom on these issues without information. And I've had people get very angry. Why aren't you championing this cause or going at? I don't have enough information to say either way what I think happened here. And you shouldn't be saying it either, right? I mean, I think you look back to the Michael Brown case, which I think is one of the most probably, it's a tragic case, as you were saying, Tré, no matter what, because it's a loss of a life. But when you get into the details of that case, an entire movement was generated around hands up, don't shoot. And it turned out being that even the Justice Department found that that was not something that they could validate ever really happened, that Michael Brown had his hands up and was shot execution style. That was the claim. And, there are a lot of reasons why truth matters there, right? For everybody's life involved, from the person who, was obviously the accused there, down to the police officer who hasn't been seen or heard from basically since that happened. So there's a lot in this that deeply matters, and it's the truth that really matters, and that's what we have to go after in these circumstances.
Oh, and it can be a discredit to people who are actually trying to solve an issue that maybe they think that and see that minority communities are disproportionately being impacted by events such as this. Well, you sow a lot of distrust when a headline comes out that maybe wasn't fully accurate or exaggerated the issue or kind of tried to spin it to their side a little bit to kind of fit into that issue when it really maybe doesn't fit or potentially doesn't fit. And then what happens is now you get people to they're not going to trust the media. They're not going to trust the report when they see it. And their instinct to just be defensive and say, no, that's not what happened there. I know what's going on here. I think you do a discredit to that actual issue that you want to fix if you don't just take the cases by the facts and then, zero in on the examples that better fit what you're saying is actually happening. I think it closes off a lot of conversation that could otherwise happen, because I think there is a lot of common ground to be had between both liberals and conservatives on the issue of police reform.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And Billy, you mentioned the things the Bible has to say about being patient and being slow to speak at times. And I'm reminded of James 1, where it's a good lesson in the fact that Scripture is not just giving us the right and proper way to live; it's also diagnostic of our issues, right? Because so James 1:19 and 20 says, "My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this: everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." And usually we stop there, which that's good. It's great. But then verse 20 says, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. And I think that's the culture that we've created, is we're an unrighteous culture in how we're reacting to these issues. So a lot of times we just completely bypass common ground, like you were saying, Dan, or even coming to a solution, because we're starting from an unrighteous place in how we're reacting to one another, rather than seeing the fact that this is a flesh and blood, literally human issue.
Yeah, and I think that the thing, and it's hard to put a name on what it is exactly, but maybe it's confirmation bias. But we really do need to push back, particularly as Christians trying to set examples on these issues when we're speaking to our friends and our people in our spheres of influence. Is don't start at a conclusion and start from there, and then look at all the things that are happening and try to fit them into your conclusion. You're bound to make, sometimes you might be right, but sometimes you're opening yourselves up to mistakes. And it's just not a good way to engage in logical thinking and to arrive at conclusions by just, here's my conclusion, let me pick and play all the things that I think fit into it.
Well, it's the opposite of how Christians are called to behave. And I think that is what we're saying here. It's actually violating your faith to go out and accuse people of things that you don't know are true, to claim you understand something that you weren't there for, and you're basically putting a puzzle together where 80% of the pieces are still missing, right? And that's what this is. And we do it in all different facets of life. But when it comes to these circumstances, like you were saying, Tré, it's a flesh or blood issue, very literally. And for other people involved, it's their careers, right? Whether they deserve to be fired fired or not. The details have to come out before we can decide that. But there are people often saying that these people should be fired immediately without actually knowing if that's the case. So there's so many pieces from the actual life and death down to people's careers, but also really our own conscience, right? What we believe to be true. Are we living that out? Are we bringing that into every scenario we encounter in life?
Yeah. And by the way, this is the video. In case you hadn't seen it, we've cut it off short of the shooting for obvious reasons. But that was the pursuit and the chase that ended up leading to this police encounter and shooting that led to the death of that 25-year-old young man. Which, as you said, Tré, it's a human tragedy on every level. And you just hope that these sorts of situations can be avoided in the future, whether it's better learning how to deal with a traffic stop when you get pulled over, whether it's police having to relook at how they handle things, whether it's looking at the whole system and saying, hey, is there a better way to handle these minor incidents that might lead to bigger ones? How can we do this better? And again, as long as we're bickering and arguing and not truthfully presenting facts, it's going to be harder to have those conversations. But as always, we'll keep you posted on this story as it develops on cbnnews.com, faithwire.com as well. Tré and Billy, thanks for being here.